Привет из Дубая. С вами передача «Голубь мира», где разбираем крутые навыки. Спрашиваем на английском, отвечаем на русском. Подтягивайте язык или смотрите перевод в тайм-кодах. Let's talk about mystification and let's start with the definition.
Mystification is a funny thing. Sometimes you have nothing to show, for example, for touristic people and for your guests, and suddenly you could realize that if you will use your fantasy, maybe you will create something unusual to show for everyone. For example, you will put cycles on the cornfields. Maybe you will put an stick in ice and then make a photo, and after blurring, you will get a Loch Ness creature, and maybe you will put something like guitar on the snow, and you will create like footsteps of the big yeti, and after this 10 or 20 years people will come to see, to look, and even scientists will arrive to recover if anything is real. So mystification is very useful for people who want to earn the money.
So when we talk about mystification and how to actually use it, maybe in different parts of the business or parts of the life, what should we be aware of as the building blocks of such a skill?
First, you should create something very solid. For example, it was a time when one scientist was researching radium, and he was thinking how he could discover something very specific to make yourself famous. And then he prepared a stew, говяжий бульон, stew, yes, correct?
As to
Stew, and then he put on top on it ready, and then ready was fallen in the stew, and after several days this scientist get on the walls of this bottle with the stew with ready something looks very familiar, like a small creatures, and this man announced that he found another form of life, and suddenly he became very famous, and for several years he was traveling around the globe with lectures. But suddenly his assistant decided to remake this experiment, and suddenly found nothing, and this man was fallen from the Olymp in a very short term. But for example, if we will return to these cycles on the cornfield, nothing was happening for several years. A lot of famous researchers were coming to look, and all of them decided that this was a usage of a technology do not known for the humans. But suddenly, after several years, two guys said we are so tired to use our night to create the cycles. So let's say that it was our joke.
Indeed, they said like the higher you climb, the more painful will be your fall. So sometimes we need to be aware of like what exactly stories we're trying to put. But it seems that mystification probably could be maybe part of the storytelling, maybe part of the marketing, or maybe like a part of the other dozen of disciplines. So if we actually put it on the map amongst other skills, or maybe we have some sort of like a hierarchy where the mystification potentially would fit.
I don't know exactly. I never built such a wall with such bricks, but maybe it would be close to something about tarot, something about astrology, and some other quasi science. I think this is a very easy trick for people who do not want to think. For example, I have been to Istanbul as you several years ago, or even several months, and there is a place called Yerebatan. This is a place for huge water storage. It was discovered when someone was trying to rebuild his floor, but suddenly his hammer was falling in the трещины в полу,
Cracks.
cracks in the floor, and suddenly it was discovered a huge pond with carp.
Koi fish probably, but probably
Yes,
need to
okay,
think.
koi fish, but it looks like Japanese style. But anyway, koi fish, okay. And it was a place for storing a huge amount of water. If something will happen with the city, water would be poisoned, or maybe it would be перекрыто, cut off,
Cut off.
maybe cut off. But when research was going on, suddenly some people discovered in the basement of one pillar, it was something on the stone. It was head of jellyfish gorgona, but was put vice versa. And scientists decided that maybe it was a way to show to jellyfish Gorgona that builders do not afraid of her. If you remember this Greek myth, if someone will look into the eyes of Gorgona jellyfish, he will become a stone.
So true indeed, sometimes, like you may have some sort of myth that actually could serve as a certain like a safety for different areas. But when we talk about mystification, obviously it could be achieved on a different levels for the different skills and maybe even on a different scale. So what are those steps, or maybe what are those levels of the influence that one needs to possess in order to make an effect?
Sometimes you do nothing and you will get a myth, and also it would follow to mystification. For example, let's talk about Ararat, this huge mountain between Armenia and Turkey. A lot of people who are going to look for a Noe ship. It was a huge ship built by a person called Noe because he wanted to put each animal a spare because he wanted to save these creatures from the potop, waterfall,
Mm, mm,
water
float,
flood, water flood.
flood.
Yes, water flood. And it was maybe 10 or 20 times when some group of scientists was saying, we finally recovered the ship. But if it was like 2,000 years ago, nothing would happen with this wood. It is already should be turned into the sand. But if it is written in the holy book, for example, as Bible, a lot of people who would believe in this. The same with so-called treasure map. A lot of pirates who was trying to sink the ships with Spanish or Portuguese or Great Britain gold. They were also trying to take the gold and put it in the, how it's called, this wooden box. Sunduk?
Chest.
Chest, okay, chest of the dead man, yes, correct. And it was burned or put under the ground in some offshore island, and a lot of people who trying to find it, and some people are saying exactly on this island, this famous pirate has hidden his chest, and if you will find it, you will be the luckiest person on the earth, because inside the great emerald, a huge amount of gold and something else. By the way, if you will go into some cities around Russia or Ukraine or Kazakhstan, you also will hear the fairy tales about something mystification. For example, if you will put your finger in such a nail, or if you will drink this water, or if you will go through this pillar like 7 times, it's about Luxor in Egypt, you will be happy, and your family would be happy, and everyone will healthy. So if you want to create mystification, you should just start, and all people around will applaud you in the mind and will create the same story by their mouth.
Definitely true that I do believe at certain places there always should be some sort of story, and it depends. Like maybe it should be something like a mystified, and it should have like a tragedy, comedy, or like any other elements. But it definitely would attract the people to visit this place and maybe to leave some sort of cash or funds if it's needed. But when it comes to mystifications, probably people might be actually misusing it, trying to tell something that doesn't really exist, and instead of creating this like wow effect, it actually could lead to the certain frustration. So what kind of mistakes people should avoid when they try to build a story and mystify certain things?
I don't want to talk about this, but I am already pressed to the wall. For example, let's talk about Knights of the Round Table. This is also a mystification. To be honest, you could ask historians and archaeologists, do they found at any time, at any digging, at at least one piece of this, I don't know how to say, latte, this metal part,
Armor.
armor with knife or spear track. You couldn't find. All of them just found as new, because this was just a moulage. This was put just to the walls in some corners of the castles. So even knight's armor, it is mystification. Let's talk about other kind of mystification. Sometimes people found in the ground huge sword for 2 hands. But the weight of the swords sometimes going to be like 12 to 16 kilograms. No one, even fiercest man, could stand with this sword for even 5 minutes. So it is also mystification to show that my parent or my father, my grandfather was strong, and everyone was trying just to take it from the ground, and it is not easy to put this with two hands. Or for example, there is a saying that we have built this huge mountain, we have dig this very long channel because we were powerful as a pastime. Everyone wants to be a part of something, but sometimes it's lead to just mystification.
And on another point of view, sometimes it might be like feeling that someone is trying to tell us the story so that they could sell something. So what kind of, I would say, like a safety or like a safeguards that we need to put in order to actually prevent of being told such a story so that we don't end up like a paying more or like a going into the wrong direction or making wrong decisions.
It was a funny time. I was going to Peru because one of my mate, we were studying in Kiev Polytechnical Institute. We were in the same group. His name was Raul Kurniaupa. I was visiting his parent in Lima, and then we were flying on the small plane above the Nazca Desert. And suddenly pilot told me, if you are looking at something, please tell me. I want to understand what you are seeing. And suddenly he told me that I found some sign. This name was geoglyph, a huge picture of something. I don't know exactly. Maybe it was monkey, maybe it was butterfly, maybe it was something like spider. And I was back and I was telling this story to my friend who was Perunian. He told me, this is just a trick. Everyone who is flying on this plane will tell the story that he discovered something that was hidden from other eyes, from eyes of other people for centuries. So do not believe it. Then I was going with Raul to some fisherman village, and suddenly there was a story. I was asked, do I know how people became to roast potato? And I'm said, no, for sure I'm not. And suddenly the old man was telling me the story. Put me money in my hand, and I will tell you a very old story about our people. It was a time when no fishermen were going to be back with a catch, and older men were trying to remember taste of the fish. They slice potato and then with knife carved the figure of fish and roasted this figure of fish. It was the first time this potato was roasted. And yes, it is funny, but who knows? Is it true or not? Maybe in the same time or even before on some other territories, the same dish was prepared, but who tell it on this territory, this person is a winner.
Well, it's interesting. It seems that sometimes stories actually are being told to you so that you can actually feel that you're first or like you're like pioneer or something. Or from another point of view, some of the stories or like a mystification are meant to be modified. Monetized. My last question will be how knowing about mystification would help to make this world a better place.
When you will find any kind of butterfly or maybe a bug or some fish or something else, and if you will be amused by faces of people who you are paying to be guided through some water or some forest, um, just you should know that sometimes it is a way to make you happy. This is not about science, it's not about new discovery. This is a way to make you feel yourself important person. So do not take it close to the heart. Be smiling and be polite.
Не принимайте мистификацию близко к сердцу, но в то же время умейте включать мозги. А мы рассмотрели навык мистификация и чем он полезен именно вам. Всем мира!